Hello everyone, and a warm welcome to the President Design Award 2020 Fireside Chat from Dream to Reality. I am Yu Hao.
And I am Yingfang. And we are your MCs and moderators today. Without further ado, let's welcome Professor Joseph Lim, Associate Professor of Department of Architecture, College of Design and Engineering, National University of Singapore, to give a short introduction about this event. Prof. Lim, please.
Good evening, everybody. And I think there must be a reason why the department asked me to host this evening, because I think at some point all the three speakers here have gone through a studio at a time when I was a junior lecturer. And I'm happy to see you guys again, all grown up and all weathered and worn. Good evening to Head who's here also. Let me give a very short introduction about our event tonight and our speakers. First off, I'd like to thank the URA and TASK for putting this thing together, the blessings of the department. The event is part of the President Design Award, known as the PDA Outreach. It is organized by PDA in partnership with DesignSingapore Council and the Urban Redevelopment Authority, and supported by NUS Department of Architecture and the Architecture Society. Well, we're here with a hybrid format together, and we have students who are from NUS today. I see some of them very hardworking, coming straight from the studio in MPSH. We have students from SUTD, Polytechnics, ITE, SOTA, LaSalle, and NAFA, who are also joining us because they have a visual arts program, and they usually come to us in the first year, all very sprightly and have a good mix with the Polytechnic people. Now, the President Design Award is the highest honor for designers and designs across all disciplines. It recognizes the achievements of an extraordinary group of people making a difference in the lives of Singaporeans and the global community through excellent design. Now, the PDA is presented in two categories: Designer of the Year and Design of the Year. It is conferred by the President of the Republic of Singapore. Since its inauguration in 2006, 41 Designers of the Year and 108 Designs of the Year have been awarded. In 2017, the PDA was relaunched as a biennial award with a greater emphasis on the impact of design, enabling economic transformation, raising the quality of life, advancing Singapore brand, culture, and connecting communities, and making groundbreaking achievements in the field of design. Now, the main objective of the event is to inspire students and share insights on what architecture and architects are about after graduating from architecture schools. And the three of the PDAs 2020 will share their experience and journey from being an architecture student in NUS to becoming a successful and award-winning architect. The Q&A session after the sharing, moderated by past members Yu Hao and Yingfang, will allow participants to have a conversation with the recipients. I will now introduce our speakers for tonight. All three speakers tonight are recipients of the PDA 2020 under the Design of the Year category. They are also alumni of our NUS Department of Architecture. First, Mr. Alan Tay, graduated from the class of 2000. Alan is the principal partner of Formwerkz Architects and is awarded for his design of the Cloister House. I also first met Alan when he was my second-year student in the second-year studio in 1996. Okay. Architect Xia Chi Huang, class of 2003. He is the Chief Executive Officer of DP Architects and the designer of Good Life Makan. I met Chi Huang when he was a final-year student, and his tutor was Li Xiaotong, who is now in Tsinghua, the star designer and professor. Yeah. And lastly, architect Ho Tzu Yin, class of 1996. He is the founding partner and managing director of LAUD Architects, and also the designer of Sparkle Tots large preschool at Punggol. Hi, Tzu Yin. I've known you also. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to conduct the sharing for us tonight, and we look forward for a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Joseph. Before we delve into the session proper, I would like to highlight a few house rules to keep the session running as smoothly as possible. Firstly, please be informed that the session will be recorded.
For participants that are physically present, please ask your questions during the Q&A session after the sharing. For webinar participants, please post your questions in the Q&A module. We apologize in advance if we are not able to answer all of your questions, but we will try our best to respond to as many as possible. Should you encounter any technical issues, please reach out to our technical team through the Zoom chat function.
It is my pleasure to invite our first speaker of today on stage for his sharing. He's awarded the PDA for his project, The Cloister House. Let's welcome architect Alan Tay, the principal partner for Formwerkz Architects. Alan, please.
So I took out my mask since I'm in a very good distance away for the audience. I have to emphasize that for the Zoom audience. So hi, I'm Alan from Formwerkz. Hi. Yes, I'm Alan, graduated class of 2000, the Millennium Boy, right? Yeah. A bit of background, go back. I was born 73. And as an architect, we like to find some significance to our existence. So my birth coincides, with the opening of one of my favorite architecture, Sydney Opera House. That was a pretty long time to complete, but a really good piece of architecture, in my opinion, of that period. I belong to Generation X, and that's important because it informed the way I look at things and my journey afterward. So Gen X and Gen X, and one of the synonymous things is that we are united with the same common fireplace in our living room, which is the Teletubby. We are a Teletubby generation before YouTube has taken over, right? So the journey began. No animation. Okay, it's supposed to be a roller coaster thing that goes on, but never mind. Okay. And at 1998, 2 years before I graduated, these four innocent, naive classmates begin to set up the office, Formwerkz, where we are fresh-faced and young and optimistic with life. And the reason for that was interesting. We have the opportunity to do that because it coincided with my early ending of seizure of, at the point there was a 1-year internship that's mandatory, but because it coincided with the Asian financial crisis, and I was let go 3 months earlier than was expected. So 3 months, do what? Set up office. And it was, the entire generation was motivated and inspired by this .com period. Now we don't have that, now social media, Facebook and all. Of course, Bitcoin and Metaverse is a norm, but at then, it was .com. Every friend of us, from computer science, business, arts, was setting up offices, web company, designing websites. And even our peers, classmates among us that are graphically creative or more in tune with the computers are setting up companies. So, okay, let's start our firm. Since everyone is doing that, this entrepreneurial spirit was really was quite kind of something that kind of was among in our years. We are the only one that went on to set up a design firm, not an architecture firm, because you're not allowed to do that. A design firm, an interior design firm, at the point where we are still, working out our thesis, right? And one of the great advantage of that was you can design your own office space. Then why is that important? Because as a student, to me, there was an opportunity to create your own island, your own being. There's something that you can be in control of. And unfortunately, or fortunately, that still goes through with our life. That, perhaps I could not be like Jeffrey Bow Wow to own Dulang Ganga You know, I could create my own Lunang Ganga in Villa M in Teluk Kurau, in one of the corner terrace. And with that, at that age, is fantastic, right? You can host your friends, you can meet new people. And of course, another way of kind of live and work and play within the same space that you call a workspace. And then in 2008, we moved to the second office, which is incidentally this annex in Shenton Way, just opposite, is also the first Singapore Polytechnic of Singapore. And the building, I was told, there was used to be an architectural workshop of the architectural faculty of the Polytechnic. So some kind of alignment, I guess, or destination. So again, we took our office, we moved. And the reason we moved was a very Singapore story, because the corner terrace was en bloc. So forced to move to somewhere more central, more hip, more happening. And yet, as far as we can, retain the idealism and the aspiration we have when it comes to spaces and the way of life. And we move again, because URA, SLA took back the land, and now it was transformed. That piece of land was transformed to a bus, I think a temporary bus interchange. And we moved to a new place, Turf Club Road. And again, interestingly, it was first completed in 1973. So it must be some kind of destination that I go there, right? And we are there now, Grandstand Office, Turf Club. Fantastic view, you know. But you know, privileged things doesn't last long in Singapore. Unfortunately, we have a final date, 2023. Because we were told that it will be taken back and redeveloped. A typical Singapore story. So maybe I have to move, maybe NUS there's some space. Maybe, you know, the new wing completed. Okay, joke aside, yes, from 2003, or actually in fact earlier this, because I was presenting this slide, you know, where we officially able to design and practice architecture was 2003. So 2003 to you know, you have to sit for exam, register, pass, and become a QP. It was 2003 that we practiced and built our own houses. So since then, that's our journey. Our houses hinges on this emphasis on building relationship between man and nature. I'm not talking about too much of it, just kind of like show the array of projects in that period from 2000 to 2010, the range of explorations and design that we were able to get client, able to get the confidence of client, and to deliver it. And from 2010 to, you know, you sort of broken down in decades to 2016, this was further elaboration of our work. So just a quick screenshot of the range of work. Mostly houses. Houses are always fun, and we constantly receive like resumes, students, graduate architects that want to join us because of our houses. Yeah. And we appear in numerous publications, which is part of the journey. It's part of encouragement to get kind of verification that your work is being recognized by peers, and it helps to, with a certain extent, with getting new works. And we kept a trophy trolley to bring, because these are like our birth child, kind of like, you know, you pass your PSLE or A level, you keep your certs. So we have a lot of these to kind of give meaning, you know, in some way, superficial way of our existence and what we have done over the years. And why is it on trolley? So in case of fire, we can roll them out fast enough. Right? But there's a fair share of disappointments also, right? That with all these things, you have awards, you have competitions, you have pitches, you have projects that you have spent hours, days, and weeks and months on, and they were not recognized. You lose, and each time a project that you have spent your dedication and passion and belief system in, because once you do that, right, no other scheme matters. Yours is the only solution to the world because of that. This is human. And with that, imagine the kind of, as much passionately you went in, you are equally disappointed with that. So I try not to be, but this. And to this day, would that change? Perhaps, right? No, it never changed, never goes away. It's always with me. I win, I lose some, heartbroken, and that's part of life. And okay, on the bright side, we managed to win 2 Building of the Year award by SIA, which is something big deal, because for houses to get that we see the recognition, and we recognize a bit of comfort from that, you know, in doing that. Of course, the grandness of all awards is finally in 2020, right? 20 years after I practiced, 20 years of producing so many houses, our first house got recognized. But why do I emphasize? It's not it's because previously, when it was inaugurated, we do make our submission. You submit, you lose. Ah, sad, 2 3 years don't take part. Okay, go back again. Ah, disappointed again. Okay, 2 3 years don't take part. So it's human. You gave up, you have to recover, because success will come, recognition will come, and all the more sweeter. Because as you know, houses category is almost near impossible, because the change of format and priority and emphasis with the President Design Award, which makes sense. You know, every award has its own like emphasis. So we got this recognized, and we're really happy and glad that finally we have crossed this path or river. And of course, another significant moment was in 2013, we won an open competition calling for the mosque in Pongo, Al Isha Mosque, right? This was a competition entry, and we won it, and was finally completed in 2015, our first public project after the house. Very significant milestone, because we were a firm that wanted to do more. But as any guys that set a firm, you start from the beginning, right? You don't land unless you're extremely fortunate through some means of competition, right? You start from there. And for years of doing houses, right? Not that we are don't enjoy that, but we yearn, because there are concepts or issues that public building surface that you can engage in that you can't find in houses. So the varying types is that. And finally with that, and more importantly, we thought for a moment that you this commission, right, things will be easier with the public procurement, and you know, it leads on to more projects of similar type, but strangely it doesn't come. And 2016, we were hit quite badly because Singapore slowed down. We always come in a cycle. With the current project, we were almost, oh no, there's not enough work to go around. We were with the practice, with the partners, you know, what to do, set, right? And then 2017, lucky break. So you see, it's important to be lucky. And once that you have that, you have to kind of like honor that, recognize it, and give thanks, due credit to whoever give you the luck. For me, of course, it's our Father in heaven. 2017, China came calling. So a quick glance of that, I'm jumping over a page. 98, you were 5%, doing mostly interior, right? So 204, we were 10, close to 10. Interestingly, in 1998, we have our first intern from NUS joining us. That was a big kick, because you know, I'm a student doing thesis, first intern from NUS joining us, our junior. So in 2004, we are 10, doing architecture, practicing architecture, a small practice. And you know, it stabilized gradually in 2013, about 35 of architects and designers. And then 2016 happened, very sad, it goes down, and 2020, because of the new thing, our firm, 200. So that is significant, because from 35 to 200, any architects or practitioner will say, within this, what does it mean? A lot of stress, a lot of transformation, right? But that's needed because opportunity arises, the jobs demanded it, we expanded laterally as well. So we are doing, at that point, hospitality, landscape, branding, marketing, technology, experience design, digital fabrication, research. It's kind of like, not very responsible, you know, that suddenly you have projects, you suddenly have some capital, right? Wow, suddenly go wow. You know, you suddenly at one point in time, with no restraint almost, go all out to realize the dream that you have held for like the past 2 decades. And that's dangerous when the bubble bursts, right? But importantly, 4 years, we have good fun. These are the range that we turn out that otherwise would not be imaginable in Singapore. Really, for residential, public institutions, commercial, hospitality, which is hotel, to small scale building, like sales gallery, kindergartens, primary schools, clubhouse, resorts, commercial, retail, blah, 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 right? Except houses, you know, they don't seem to want house designer in China. Maybe the local could do it a lot better, I think. And we were doing our first resort, which is a hotel, which is impossible again, because certain types you realize, right? If you are not in the list, you'll never ever get the job. With exception. So life, there's always exception. Just they need to seek the opportunity and don't give up, because that is the main trend. There's always a predominant way of how things work. You should go with the flow as far as possible, but still take a risk. Otherwise, I will remain doing what I do last 20 years, right? So the first break came when we managed to design one block, not two, to design side by side with our dear friend Su Kian, with his great honor. He's doing Waldorf Hotel and doing built next to him as high rise. That itself also a real kick. And we are able to contribute also in a sense of a tropical sky high rise in a way, because it was Shanya, similar to Singapore, a tropical belt, but there's attacked annually by typhoon, and that inspired the entire design that shaped this concept of resort, which again departs from what you see in Shanya, which is all kinds of form, from Balinese alang-alang to Thai rule, Japanese rule, Zen, and all that. They have exhausted basically all typology of resort, and then we were challenged on that, and we pick on climate architect, climate response, and from there shape a team that surrounds it. And the other interesting project was also, unfortunately not built, it was a master plan, was to do a movie city. Wow, how fun was that, right? Zhang Yimou, all come into my mind. Wow, a city that's on concept on building a movie town, right? So of course, with the three main parcels, we thought of all the typology that is evident in all the wuxia pian or all the Chinese things, like you must have your qiao, you must have courtyard, you must have pagoda, right? The ta and the hu, right? Use this element to organize the plan. So that really drives this whole thing, rather than port ratios, circulation, or TP. Doesn't mean those things are not there. But what takes center stage becomes this organizing morphological formal approach that give identity in a way to, and a spatial experience to the city, right? So this is a kind of some render to show that 1 km bridge that we talked about. The Qiao was 1 km. Literally thinking, well, 1 point to connect 3 parcels together that ends with a pagoda. So the axis, all you learn, the urban planning, the own client, do everything Chinese comes into one. That's where you get really orgasmic, because a question that was asked, what were you taught in school? The greatest joy is that you are able to apply it. The critical thinking, the lesson learned, to apply it actively, consciously in the design, in the real market. The other point, of course, 01 Technology Fest. It's CES, they have Vegas and all that, but in Shenzhen, they are doing one. So, wow, Technology Fest, not architectural fest, technology, something that's totally alien about technology, which is something we are also infatuated with at the moment in time. So how do we represent a technology fest? So the idea of second nature came about. That technology enable facilitate. Technology is not about how powerful you are, how many gimmicks you can do, how easy, how the interface you do. It's about how naturally it becomes part of nature, or part of human nature. So that drives and informs the various totem, in this case, to the pavilions, to the layout, to the speakers. CES always has speakers kind of podium to speak. So this sci-fi screen to see there is kind of like at the moment registrating every different user's kind of count, concurrent when the speaker speaks. So there is this live feedback kind of situation. They are not graphics, they are like kind of live feedback while the lectures go on. So I thought that's something very relevant, and technology definitely can achieve that, right? So giving form to narrate was kind of a task on something that's so dry and technology kind of driven, right? Or trade show driven, so to speak. Interesting. One more little thing that we did with China, again, was interesting place ground for us, because they were very adventurous with a lot of things, that's empowered by technology. So one of these was that everybody, Alibaba included, was going to have this race of who can come up with their own manless supermarket or mini-mart or 7-Eleven. And you can see some of these are trickling down slowly to Singapore. At that point, it was quite new. So we begin to understand manless is not just, don't need man. There are still human needs for the person that experiences the space that needs, right? For instance, you pay something because they use facial recognition to all that. You pay by waving. How do you know things are paid? How do you know? There are certain answers. So we went in to design even hand gestures that we patent. To kind of say that okay, it was this motion that certified that you agree to foot the bill. Yeah, I mean little things that. How that from architecture, from system design to experience could be a modular thing. Prefab construction was considered so that it could be as small as that to like multiple modules of growing in size when deployed in different parts of the cities, right? And all the fun stops when COVID starts. So next part of the journey, with COVID, what happens? So with COVID, the big great thing becomes go back. We have to come back home to the little black dog, to Singapore, because all projects stand still in China. Not so much of COVID, but really because of Mr. Xi policy that really clamps down. If you are aware of the news, basically all private developer has no business or in deep shit in a way because of financing and all that. It's interesting so that you're aware of that, and you have no business at all unless you are working with which we kind of regret for not penetrating and working with the government on public sector projects at the point because we're just too busy and consumed with the given work. Now we need to re-establish ties, but if not, there's always Singapore to trust. Go back. The whole in a way, yes, we came back and the size back to 115 at the moment. So again, pendulum. Each time that swings, right, is disappointment, is sadness, is everything. Letting people go is no joke. Letting one staff go is heart-wrenching. So it's not a number game. It's something that you are prepared to do as part of this journey. Or you can say, okay, stay still, one person, I run the show. Yes, then you have only yourself to answer to. So that happens again, 115. And again, while that happens, we also thank our fortune, and we must give thanks. It's not so easy. Come back means you got a job. But at the moment, we managed to pinch 3 important jobs to sufficiently sustain whatever we have, the team that we established. So one of it was the new Maxwell House. No complaint, really prominent site, because URA Center is a dream job. It was something that I hope it will eventually launch, I think in this end of the year, something I look forward to, that we managed to get our first city condo. Very hard because 20 years try, always lose to Sukian. Or DP, Jihang, or even like, Zhing, always, because, like hotel, like types, it makes sense. Society says, oh, what's your experience? So that people wonder what's your experience. It's reality of work, So it's always that when we are finally successful in getting that, we really are grateful because it's important step. Another project that was important, although it doesn't turn out as much as we wish it could have pushed it, was a joint project with one of our lecturer, Adrian Lai, Clarke Quay rejuvenation. So the next round that we are supposed to improve a few things that doesn't work out in the first revamp, which is maybe in the noon time. This place is famous at night, right? It's like wow at night, but then daytime is impossible. So we are going in to solve that primarily, placemaking and how to improve the river promenade. But it's a project that is very rich that we were undertaking. And the other project was an office tower next to Maple Tree. Again, a client that's very enlightened that allowed us to push. We are very happy when we were landed with project that allowed us to push and cross boundaries that was kind of accepted norm as office tower, for instance. So I think how's that? Fine. Okay. Okay. To end it because like 20 years a bit long. So we are doing that. We're optimistic, guys. To be optimistic, we just formulate, Formwerkz, right? So we believe in the new philosophy to give form to the future. Future is all uncertainty. The needs of future, from needs of housing to the way retail should be, or the way we work, the way we travel. I think it was COVID does present that, accelerated that process. To have clients to believe that there's urgent need to that. I think it's right. Good moment in time, giving form to the future, the metaverse, your generation, right? That's something that I have to catch up. What the hell is fluffy idea and metaverse, right? But when your friends are become Bitcoin millionaires, that become set you thinking. Yeah. So going there, how do we do that? Concept, right? We believe in this to establish a very consistent framework, irregardless of project. As I mean this, we believe in clause, oxymoronic, to be hybrid, to find hybrid, to have a plus. Like our houses, we realize it's embedded all the while there. That's why our houses name always have a kind of prefix to it. Alleyway house, ram house, courtyard house, open house, veranda house, which in a way becomes a preoccupation and guiding principle to test certain typology, types, archetypes. You combine archetypes to create a new type in the sense of what in the example of the house, right? And I kind of visualize or pick the image that Shop, the architectural firm in New York, like to claim maybe it's kind of like this, both and end, both a sheep and a wolf, right? Or in today's context, right, MS Tech or Taxi Bay, the mythical rhinocorn, right? Why? So that in a way to combat what the future. What's the future about? AI, right? So do things that AI, the human brain must elude and perform in a way that the AI cannot match up. So become the mythical rhinocorn that they cannot recognize. And the journey continues. Thank you.
This is architect improvising, the kind of preoccupation to set the stage, because I was asking something, I said, hey, can I don't do it behind a rostrum? Yeah, it's okay, I'll just leave it here. Okay, a bit of logistics. Let's see if this works. Oh, yes, very good. So, evening everyone, pleasure to be here. Because the memo that we got, share about your personal journey and inspire young architectural students, future architects too. So, and set a bit of context disclaimer. So this is quite personal. Don't blackmail me with some of the photos. But I would say context is very much based on my personal journey. And again, to start off, it's also contextualizing it with our local landscape or a scene in terms of the architectural space that perhaps we are a bit more familiar with. So start off, always go to the wise man. Which part of the face in life? This is of course Confucius, and we all know. So I was like, hey, wow, 四十而不惑. For those, okay, that's translation. Oh, no doubt. So quite clear this part of my life about things, and apparently I'm coming to 50 midway. So I'm supposed to start to understand. So, i.e. conclusion is probably can't change my current profession. Yeah. And then one of the other things I thought, hey, okay, how to approach this? And my favorite way, also to some extent approaching architecture or even questions to do with space is always, asking the question. And in these aspects, probably we'll touch on three domain. One is from self to this idea of team, and then how has it enriched my expedition in architecture. Yeah, so this is me. Yeah, and I think it was an art competition. So very much, I would say this image links to the first passion in life. I was very fortunate. At 6, my parents gave me access to acquire this life skill. And the life skill is not just about technique, but the appreciation and of art itself, the technique, the cultural kind of influences that I think very much hone this or seed this first kind of interest in architecture. Second, something a little bit more energetic, basketball. So, okay, maybe this is a stereotypical kind of way to say basketball player. I'm quite tall, 186, so it helps a bit in terms of the air that I breathe, or more probably the kind of view of vision. And started since I was 12, play competitive basketball for many years. And I would say one of the key part about how the passion in sports has also helped me is to learn how to channel this energy. And part of basketball itself is also the appreciation of team. The notion of teamwork. You know that as good as you are, it's also the ability and capabilities of the entire team. The other thing, again, this is us postulation over thinking or rationalizing our own life, right? Is that the ability to read the field of play. Because you always need to understand where are you in relation to not just your team members, but your competitors and opponent. And the cool part is you have one target, that is to get the ball in and to win ultimately. All right, so I think these are the parts that help. And from setting wise, I saw two with my, okay, these are two elder big brothers. So the same kind of setting, I think it affects 80% of probably the team members and audience here, home or in person. So very much through large part of my life in the public housing landscape, I think it also hones my particular sense and sensibility, to some extent this obsession and interest about the impact of our built environment to our daily lives. Maybe later you can see in some of the projects that I will share. And of course, started my journey in School of Architecture, NUS, got alumni of, like Joseph, actually he forgot, he was my year 1 tutor, not final year. That was with Andrew Rondeles, where he was the structural tutor. The thing about Joseph was very interesting. Sorry, I just add story here. So every time when Joseph starts to speak softer, I think that's when you get crazy. Always remember this part about Joseph. So you know, it brings back such sweet memories. But he was fantastic. Has always been highly inspirational. And this was, I think, very eventful. Was 99. I got the on and on traveling scholarship at that point of time. And at the same time, I was also, again, this speaking like an uncle. During my time, our exchange was for an entire year. So out of the 5 students, and every 1 student you send to a school, I got a chance to get my entire 4th year postgraduate diploma to do it in UK, Bartlett UCL. I think this very much, I'll say, was a phase that really challenged, but changed and really deeply enriched my architectural journey. And with that, with the opportunity, I found a job in Foster's in UK from 2000 to 2002 and worked on a project, Wembley Stadium. All right, so interestingly, and also a parallel, or rather to what Alan, so I started with big things. So I'm actually quite comfortable when the project is big, and that appreciation of the power of scale. And of course, with that, I come to another practice with big projects. So because before I left, then our chairman, Mr. Chan Soo Yim, now I realized, oh, he's quite smart. Because I was interning in DP before I flew to UK. And then they offered me a scholarship at the year, wow, DP, Golden Mount, People's Park, Esplanade, okay, on. And that's still very much my life after I returned and started also my life with DP, which I'm also a proud team member of. And during that moment in life, across these years, I think I've also developed in these chapters of life. So now happily married to the love of my life. And then we have 3 bundles of joy. I think this is the part where parenthood has also taught me this whole idea of how we be better people and this whole notion of purpose. And talking about the idea of purpose and better people, then moving to the professional side. So from the capacity of life to the professional capacity, I think these are two aspects that again further shape my journey moving on in terms of the notion of team and the bigger part of how it has also enriched the architectural journey. To start, my first encounter with SIA, then my team leader was Mr. Tai Li Xiang, so some of you will know. So now currently with SUTD. So I would say motivate, but actually I was arrogant. I was his team member. So if you want, SIA is going to have this Sao Paulo Biennale. I think it was 2005. Yeah, first, I think of Singapore's first Biennale in Sao Paulo. Far, but gave me a chance to travel. That was wonderful. And then through that, of course, I started also my own chapter in life with the Institute, the Singapore Institute of Architects. And then with that, the further participation then was anchored with another major kind of gathering and festival. Probably most of you will know, which is the ArchiFest. So was part of the team. And then of course, with the larger team, we created various programs through the space of ArchiFest and allow us to continue to discuss and create different discourse about what's our take in various phases of our nation building in terms of what are the impact of our built environment and design in the psyche of our society and community. And again, from that aspects, there's a whole team of people that I learned from. These are a council member. I think my last term, because now I'm the immediate past president. So if you see the mask on, roughly, that's the period. Yeah. And of course, the cool part about SIA is also the extension to a whole depository and this all giants that we get associated with. This was a luncheon with our past president, 2019. Yeah, and then of course, some of them you'll find very familiar faces, right? That we further acquire and get infected by that level of commitment and passion for our profession. And of course, back in BP, this notion of team is even more significant for myself. These are my partners, directors, all good-looking, 33 of them. And one good part I always like to describe about the DP's team is that I use the Marvel comics as the analogy, right? That everyone has their unique superpower, but there's also a part of their weakness. But collectively, we are powerful because we are able to complement each other's skill set very well. So, and this has also allowed the team to grow, again, this idea of capacity beyond an architectural firm to a multidisciplinary practice, offers 9 other specialist design discipline, with 16 officers worldwide. Did I get it right? I better get all this. So that's quite a number. And then over the years have continued to shape landscape, not just around the world, but especially in Singapore. So this is a bigger team, again, from the context, no mask, you know, that was, and I always share, and recently I just shared, the nice thing is every year DP will try to gather the entire office together in one of the buildings we recently completed. Yeah. So, and then of course my own immediate team members and teammates that I'm very indebted with, and I know that I can never achieve what I'm sharing without their participation and hard work. And then from there, this is one of my favorite quotes about my own sense of what architecture is to me. Right? This, and from Mark Fuller, you may have heard about this, is the power of how our environment is designed. And look at it from how it can start to influence users, the people. And from there, when you positively influence the user and the people, they will in turn start to positively impact others. When I say the word impact, it always sounds, in this context, not great, but that was the idea. Of course, speed the process forward. There was a whole, see whether I can, oh, yeah, correct. Yeah, thanks. It's all right. So, of course, this, where was I? Okay, the whole architecture expedition, of course, continue. So favorite thing, doodling. I love to draw, and most of I would say all the projects, there will always be a doodle or sketch that talks about it. But one key part also in terms of learning from some of myself, experience and journey, and of course, in positive influence and lessons from team members, is the idea that consolidate my notion of architecture also as an extension of our value system. So very much the way our city, the building is designed, reflects who we are, all right, and our aspiration towards it. And this becomes, again, a vehicle that's extremely powerful that we can capitalize on, further propagate good values and do good things and do good for our society. And so one project from doodling, the sketch that started, how it's transformed in terms of form, and most powerful part is about the space that we create. And not just the space in terms of containing the function, but the space to bring communities of all kind of each group's background and unite, almost the power to unite a nation. So that was what's up, NDP in 2016 that we were involved in the set design right during that time. So kind of very meaningful to connect from the sketch all the way to how the event happens during that day. And there's also foray into space of heritage. It was the early years on housing heritage project that City Lights. So I was architect working with our senior. And what was interesting about it was to look at it from a spatial term, from there to reinterpret, and the clues from that was seen more from the roofscape because you can't touch the facades, right? And then the whole space of living, of course, not as many houses as Allen, but the idea of this high-rise, high-density. And I think this was one of the first few Sky Terrace project that was involved. Okay, and even the idea of other high-rise living, the exploration into translating that to details and tectonics. But I would say that this is where the focus starts to shift when I have access and more opportunities to look at how through our projects and daily works, it can start to influence different segments of our community. Because our Tampines Hub is one key project, not just about this idea of a development which has many different components. So it interrogates and it looks at the concept of integration, where you bring 12 agencies, 30 urban facilities. How do you kind of start organize complexity of this nature? Stressful, 100%, but outcome, I think something that we are quite proud of. Because at least to date, I think it's the building with the highest footfall in community space. Pre-COVID, I think 17 million per year. Even with last 2 years, it's about 12 to 13 million. Still really high. All right. What is delightful about it is the different spaces that you're creating. So it's not just a huge development, but it's actually a whole series of different micro environments. And the great part about ODH is also the opportunity to engage different facets of our society. And one key role in terms of design process is also challenging our own ethos as architect when the group that you're designing for is this whole big body of community, all right? And to reach out to all the 260,000 residents of Tampines was one of the objectives that was set up behind the projects in various facets of participatory design. And then, of course, the different engagement, outreach. But it also starts this whole repertoire in the last 10 years of our participation in this space within the local landscape and the different projects that myself and my team within DP has worked on. And I would say size matters, but small is beautiful, and very much about this project Good Life Makan. And this is where you understand the capacity of architecture to really challenge and empower communities. So stay-alone seniors coming together. So through the idea of food and the way we look at programming, keeping it the right kind of environment, you can empower stay-alone seniors to shift from their roles of objects of charity into active, participating members of the society, where they cook for one another, they come together and give them purpose and this idea of dignity. So we did an update for them, so continuing to do so. In fact, tomorrow I'm looking at 2 more of their centers. So it's a part of what we feel as architects beyond what we are doing day job. There's also these other facets or part that we can continue to help and reach. And from the young to the even younger, probably your age. So that's a hardware network. So this is for youth charity group that we designed their workspace for, moved to a new space at Dangerous Avenue. So we had a chance. So every time there's this thing, we'll always try to add some play equipment and functions. So looking at adaptive space to allow the users to configure, looking at different ways to encourage them to create their own setting, take ownership about the level of interaction they hope to create. And sorry, this is the mouse part. And of course, extending it further a bit more topical recently, this is with the SIA team. We're also part of the team that looks at reviewing the design guidelines for the foreign workers. 1 minute, okay, I won't use as much time as. All right, of course, from mobility, I had a chance to look at a bus stop. Again, not just pure from function, but how it's also a part of our social landscape to look at plugins, create different types of bus stops environment. And one great part is it adds to the conversations of emerging part of how architecture is shaping space. Of course, from the integrated hub, we see the rise of a few more many. Then from look at different ideas of new bus stops design configurations. It drives the kind of discourse, and this whole idea of void deck, no longer that placeless nature or that setting, but something that can really add delight to the everyday lives of residents. But the challenge doesn't stop there. So because of the audience, I thought, hey, some of the destination like to collect things. So this whole thing about wellness, you know, of course, this is quite a big image. But again, idea of larger, okay, difficulties and hurdle in terms of how, as architects, part of place taker, when we look at the bigger environment or detriments that we're doing to it. And we are somewhat caught in this perfect storm, right? Where you're faced with industrialization, whole notion of digitalization, decarbonization, urbanization, everything's coming in. Also, but with that complexity also comes a lot of opportunities. So within our own space, we're looking at defining or developing new matrix. So something we started 2014, again working with the UN 17 SDGs, the new measures, trying to push towards this notion of evidence and outcome-based approach in terms of bringing science in, but of course, keeping in mind the humanity aspects, and to be part of the active group. So DP is one of the, I would say, first initiator of signatories of the construction declare in a motion in terms of taking action for the climate and larger biodiversity preservation. And very important, be part of the advocacy. All right. So instead of complaining and talk about change, be a part of that change. We have a chance. So and then from there, challenge status quo. Green Plan 2030 is actually the 4th iteration. The first one started in 1992. This is 2022. So I look forward to the 5th iteration by many of the team members here. And of course, last 2 slides, I thought very important, again, from this entire journey, is humility. Uncle Louis, one of the Good Life Makan residents, right? Because they said, hey, before the thing was conceptualized, they went up, hey, Uncle Louis, I don't want to point anyone, Uncle Louis, yeah, come down, let's help you. All right, with all these centers providing that. His answer was no, right? But after we rethink and reframe the entire approach, we went up to Uncle Louis and said, hey, Uncle Louis, please come and help us. He said, sure, I'll be down there. All right, so the power of design, and of course, last slide, power of unity. This idea of we, story of Redwood, again, something, lessons learned from nature, tallest trees in the world, 100 over meters, but their root depth is less than a fraction, maybe 1.5 meters. How do they do so? All right, it's because naturally they tie all their roots and networks together. And this is the power, all right, of how collectively when we are able to be part of the champions of change, we can really move the field further. So with that, thank you so much.
Thank you, Chief Hong. Our last speaker today is architect Ho Zi, founding partner and managing director of LAUD Architects. He received the PDA for his design of Stucco Sport, large preschool at Congo.
Hi everyone, such an honor to be here. It's been 20 years. My historical archive says that I graduated in 1996, Bachelor of Arts. So I've had the honor to be taught by Dr. Joseph Lim, amongst many others. So I'll be very brief. You know, the wonderful project and process that Alan and Chi Wang have shown. But today I'll just emphasize on one project and bring you through my inner thoughts and the design process while I was designing this project, and maybe it helps to illuminate some of the questions that because you have asked some of these questions along the way. Okay, so this project is really a childcare. We call it Sparkle Thoughts, PAP. You know, some of y'all might have been enrolled there when you were young. The interesting thing about this project is that okay, so a few years ago, we were approached to join a competition for this project. And the interesting thing about this project is that they really want it very fast, and it is very huge because it is the first childcare that contains 1,000 kids inside. At that time, it was like the first childcare that has this capacity, and it needed to be finished in 10.5 months of construction, which is very short time. So as to the very first thing that went through our mind was that how do you even conceive of a childcare that has such a large capacity? Because, and also, what does it mean to be a childcare? I think that's the interesting part about being an architect, because every new typology, every new building you do, you actually learn about the ways of life. You learn about how things are operated. You do an office building, you do a university, you do a childcare, and through interactions with the operators, we actually learn more about it. Important to us was, of course, the learning environment, safety, and comfort. But beyond that, there are things that only early childhood pedagogy experts, like the teachers, will teach you. And we found out that in an early childhood environment, the children don't learn by studying, reading. Actually, they learn by sensory and tactile and movements because they are so young. Early childhood means 0, meaning infant, to 4 years old. So it is a very mobile, it's very play-oriented environment. So that set us thinking, that set us thinking on this trajectory about creating a school that is really half classroom and half playground kind of environment. So that was exciting. Okay. Site-wise, it's a very typical site. We are all familiar with HDB estates, big flat, kind of like a tabula rasa kind of thing, no contours whatsoever, overlooked by HDB flats on both sides. So it also kind of told us that besides the elevation, the top view also is also important. Okay. Then, how do you create an environment for 1,000 kids? The first things that came to our mind was traffic safety. Imagine, like every morning, 1,000 cars come and deliver the kids. It will be quite a general mayhem going on. The second thing was, of course, child safety. How do we create a safe environment for them to enjoy? So, the very first thing we did was to break it down into 3 parts. At the moment, there was no derivation of form. Right, there was this. It's just this instinctive thought to scale, to descale it, to break it into 3 parts. 300 plus. It is quite similar to some of the childcares that we have done before, so it's able to. It is conceivable in a sense. And the form really came about because the site was pretty squarish, and we thought that the safest way to do it was to create a sort of a safe oasis in the middle. So the traffic could actually circulate around the whole building and drop off the kids. At any point of the perimeters, we created 3 entrances, and anyone that passes through this ring will be put into a safe zone that is totally vehicular-free. So step by step, I think the nice thing about architecture is we always are in the exploratory mode. We try not to have any preconceived shapes or forms. It is more rewarding if at the end of the day, you derive something that is totally unexpected, but yet fulfills all the things that you try to set up. You know, in that way, architecture is one of there's this excitement about discovering new things, not just for the sake of it, but new solutions, new forms to address the problems at hand. Okay, so this is one of the ways that that the form came about. The second thing, if you made, this is really pre-COVID days, maybe 4 years, 5 years ago. But kids usually, they do get infected by hand-foot-mouth disease, if you know about what I mean, those are kids, you know. So what happens if any of the classrooms, one of the kids get infected, the whole class, unfortunately, your classmates all get quarantined. They still come to school, but they can't go to the playgrounds, they can't use any of the facilities. Ideally, they should not, the circulation should not cross. That means they should not share a staircase, should not share a corridor with the rest of the kids. So that's where this circular form come into use, because there are always alternative paths and entrances to allow for the quarantine kids. Okay, so, and we have multiple entrances. Third thing, diameter and scale. At this point, we realized that the scale of the diameter was about 40 meters. Have you ever gone into a 40 meters diameter space? I must say not that many in Singapore, but if you are familiar with Pantheon in Rome, the diameter is about 43 meters. Okay, so it is a large scale. We were very concerned that the kids will be overwhelmed, because they are very young, small kids after all, very young, by the scale of the space. That's where we came upon the idea of breaking it down into a smaller, more, I would say, intimate scale into 3 portions. Right in the middle, we situated the multipurpose hall. Okay, so slowly, step by step, it came into this. And how does it look like? It basically takes the function of the Y-shaped bridge, which functions are injected inside below, and on top is really a play area. So you may notice that this preschool has a lot of open play decks. Again, it is a reaction of my memory. I mean, previously I was in one of the old, I grew up in an old kindergarten nursery, and it was really cramped in the void deck kind of thing. There wasn't many play areas, and if it's time to play, you actually use the playground outside the HDB. But in this case, for 1,000 kids play preschool, we are basically accommodating 10 of these childcares together. So the amount of play space is really great, and the kids could basically run round and round and really enjoy the space. And what the preschool teachers enjoy is the ability to plan different activities for the kids. Okay, so these are the visuals of the 3 segments with the different play areas. And one of the things that we wanted to create incorporate in all our projects was really the idea of natural ventilation. You know, being in a tropical climate, it is really important. And also, we wanted to create a center that actually allows it to be operated in totally natural ventilation. That means, unless there's haze going on, the whole center can be aircon in the classrooms, but otherwise, the air really just flows through the space. Okay, this is the central space of the dining area. And sectional wise, we have attempted to create a very high volume such that the air itself becomes an insulator, right? Just right under the Teflon, the air becomes an insulator, and the wind literally just flows through the whole building. And of course, it's aided by HVLS fans. And this is actually a simulation of how air is being drawn through the classroom's opening and expelled right to the top. So this was a simulation. Of course, it was done before the building was built, but in actual fact, you could actually feel it happening on site. This was another view. And just now you may have, I mentioned the historical building, Pantheon in Rome. It was a very distinct memory. The first time I visited Rome in Pantheon, it was actually raining. And if you have actually gone there in the rain, it's such a magical sight because why would a designer design a perfectly shaped dome and leave a 7.8 meters gaping hole right in the middle to let the rain in? But it was such a poetic sight. And I suppose that has really somehow inside my memory all this time. So when it came to the time to create this big shelter, we proposed to the clients to let us open a hole there and situate the garden right underneath, so that the idea is such that we wanted to create an environment such that the kids will not be cut off from the outside. If it rains, they can play in the rain. If there's a breeze, they can really feel it going through. So after some persuasion and of course some stimulation of the rainfall, we managed to convince the client, which was actually quite fortunate. So in a way, this is similar to another project, in the east of Singapore. Except our rain vortex only works when it rains. So this is it's an image of the. Nowadays I don't know whether the teachers actually let the kids play in the rain, but again, that was a memory from young. Whenever it rained, I walk home from primary school to my house. I used to step on every puddle and play. So this is the interest. Again, designing a childcare really let us become kids again. It draws out memories that are long forgotten, and then you imagine what if you're a kid, what would you like to imagine? What would you like to experience? And these are the things that I personally enjoy as an architect, because it lets you create things and good things to let the kids of this generation experience. Okay, so this is basically the party diagram. I wouldn't go too much into details. The other thing about creating childcare is really the movement. Just how I mentioned movement. So the idea of having a single ramp that links all the floors from first to second to the rooftop playground is really important. The entry lobby and some of the spaces behind. Playgrounds. So instead of building a building with classrooms right in the middle and a playground to the external, we wanted to create a space where classroom and playgrounds are all interspersed. So at any one point, you step outside your classroom, there will be something. And in this case, two slides were actually located at the place where the parents come and pick up the kids, or rather the kids wait for the parents to come. So we thought that it would be great, if they can enjoy themselves while waiting for the kids to come. So it's very interesting because it happened that some of the kids actually don't want to follow their parents back home because of this. And this is an area of water play, and this one is quite interesting. This is actually a playground for the toddlers and the infants. Oh, okay, 1 minute. So what we wanted to create was a place where they experience textures and they experience the mode of balancing. So, I mentioned that's how kids learn, right? So again, the idea of colors and textures that's imbued at every place and at every entrance of the classrooms. Not least of all, it's a sense of imagination. We thought that it would be more interesting to label classrooms by interesting animal shapes composed of quadrants or circles rather than by names. So these symbols, we created these symbols to locate them at every entrance. I just skip through one of this. So this is how the center looks like right now. I think being an architect is really interesting to see how your space gets inhabited. In this case, by the children's artwork, and it's very lively. It always changes, and they really make themselves. It really feels like a home. And the sunlight that comes through right now, this picture was taken at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and it's really through the oculus right in the middle. So in a sense, it is like a gigantic sundial, and the mode and the lighting of this place really changes with the time. So finally, the rooftop, and this is the view from right. So during the opening ceremony of the building, the kids were asked to draw their impression of this childcare, and this is what they came out with, right? Just circles and circles. And in a sense, they are right. Circles of different colors and different textures. So finally, this is a view from the rooftop. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Zhi.
Now it's the highlight of the evening. I would like to invite all speakers on stage for a Q&A session. 18 phones and my pleasure to be moderator for today. We will now open to the floor for questions.
Dear participants, please raise your hand if you'd like to ask our speakers a question. If not, we have some questions prepared beforehand. These were submitted through our link. So we will direct this question to the floor. How do you keep yourself motivated through tough times? And what motivated you to keep pursuing a career in this field? Have you ever considered stopping through the hard times?
That's always hard time. There's hard time in the beginning. Year one, right? I'm sure every single girl in my year cried one time. Not because of Joe only make boys cry. No, joke aside. You see, year one, stress, right? I'm sure that's near memory to you guys, right? Thesis year, stress, cannot pass out, Then people ask, oh no, because we started with as a student. So the biggest things forever since we had started a firm is where's the next project coming? And to this day, it continues to haunt my mind. But then why don't give up, right? And that is a very peculiar thing, because at each time of your life, right, when you mature, when you're young, your needs change. You have family, you get older, right? You have perhaps you need to take care of older parents, right? There's commitment, there's expectation. But that stress of survival goes there. Project itself, highs and lows. There are projects that's perfect. You met up with an item client, that's a dream come true. But that's not always, right? There'll be hard times. There'll be obstacles that you will always have to navigate. There's always easier life. There's always a friend that earns a lot more than you and a better. There's time that you come to a point that okay, you have wrong reality. You compare, okay, your friends are jetting off for ski trips, and then you look at maybe the revenue of the year, and you feel, it only goes into itself. And that is fine when you're single, because if you go Bukit Timah Hill, right, that will be also a dream, because you can, as long as we are creative, right, you can make anything work. Or when you have kids. There are kids, classmates that start to compare with reality sets in, right? So to scare you. So how? Then navigate. But psycho yourself. You see, when you're down, right? Push forward. You have to find meaning in what you do in a career. What is the objective? Like doing good for society, realizing certain things that your ambition. You have to connect that. Otherwise, I can't, know how, otherwise, humanly, I mean, all of you are equally apt. You don't need us to advise you. Any of you will be the same thing. how else will you survive this, right? Maybe Chihuahua.
Coming the arrow.
Sure.
Okay, I thought again this question about tough or difficult times, and perhaps look at the parallel, the dynamics of that. You know, when you know there's tough time, that means there's also the moment that are sweet, right? And perhaps my own experience about architecture, or I still call this the expedition that I'm still learning from or experiencing, is that I value the sweet part more than the difficult part. I don't know whether this is the masochistic aspect of architecture, but I would say, relating back to Alan's last point, this is the part where I do think this is one of the most unique qualities of our vocation, the part that gives us purpose in our work. And it's important if we are in this space, pursuing this form of, I won't say even career, I call it this vocation, and in this journey, this is the aspects that we need to value. And the other part that, of course, comes with that is the motivational aspects that you mentioned. So when you see projects that you have completed, not just in terms of the manifestation of your thoughts, the ideas, but the delight from the user's perspective. I mean, it can be in this space, we talk about some residential project, great house, the family, bring them closer together, serving their needs, all the way to community spaces, or even we give the example of Void Deck Center or bus stops. So this is the power of what we can do, all right? And I think that's the aspects that's important to remind us. And I always say, in life, it's not just about making the dollars. And this is going back to our own value system, right? And when we are interested, or in fact, when we start our journey in architecture, I think there's a certain value that already unite us, all right? Otherwise, you will not be even in this space, right? Or if you are, I think probably you can reconsider. Honest, I mean, we have to be very truthful and honest about it. Yeah. So I thought, and of course, one of the motivation for me personally is also the part about learning from different people, partners. As Zoe mentioned, when you do the childcare, you learn. That's the humility part. All right, you learn, hey, wow, actually kids' perception is this low. Because our world is this big, right? Actually, kids look at everything in magnified scale. And then that level of sensitivity, and when you design for the seniors who are staying alone, the psyche is so different. And then the way they understand way of life is so completely different from ours. So that humility part is so precious and key. And then of course, from our own team members. Again, I say safe to say, my two dear friends here like me, we have team members that work closely with us. And then their kind of contribution, their hard work, their energy, and then their commitment are also things that drive us to continue to be focused and cast this half part as something temporal that we can definitely overcome for the greater part of this profession. Yeah.
I think they both said right. I have nothing further to add except, you know, personally, I feel it's really meaningful to create feelings for the community because, you know, you really benefit a whole wide spectrum of people out there, and this is one of the things that keeps me going. Of course, there are tough times, and then we have plenty of colleagues. I have colleagues that have left us and became bankers, you know, or you know, they have, of course, they have different ways to measure, but I do find our career very meaningful, and that's enough to keep me going. Yeah.
Right. Thank you for a very insightful answer. Would anyone in the audience like to ask the next question?
Let's see the
Okay.
If not,
We do have a Zoom question.
Oh,
Yeah, so slightly concerned Zoom audience. Maybe I'll
concerned.
The Zoom audience would like to ask, maybe one of the speakers can help to answer. Would you recommend a student who just finished their year 1 modules to start doing an internship with architectural practices?
I was just waiting for my friends to say, yeah. I mean, why not?
Yeah,
Why not? And I would say it's important to get a sense of what practice is like. But the choice of the firm is also important. About what are you seeking for in that, say that space of or this period of learning. But important lesson for all students and for us also lifelong learners, right, is to continue to keep your mind open. All right, understand, say that the nature of practice, perhaps the challenging part, the tough part, right? But again, the sweet portion, all right? And then find your own compass. I think, and then perhaps sometimes you see bad examples of things, then you remind yourself that's what I should not do, all right? Or I want to do something different from this. So, but such exposure and such kind of immersion, I think it's very important, in fact.
Maybe I can add also. Yeah, I totally agree. It's absolutely important because the world, how the real world, if you can call it that, architectural world operates outside, it's very different from the controlled environment as it should be. You know, this controlled environment is for you to experiment with ideas and all that. But how real projects work outside, many of our young interns come and they were quite amazed how fast things move and how they have to deal with very real things like budget, authorities, you know, all that kind of technical things, which is not a bad thing, but it is very useful to, while you're in this academic environment, you go outside and immerse yourself and then come back again. You have a better appreciation of how really precious these few years of university life is, because you know you really, there's no limit to your imagination to what you want to explore. All these things you will have to deal with eventually when you're outside. And of course, they learn quite a lot of the hard technical skills as well, which is also useful for you to express yourself better in your academic work. So I think that is one of the advantages.
Maybe something lighter, because you know, one of my year one classmates, right, found the love of his life doing the year one internship.
Wow.
You know, just a life, right? You know, he's just experience. So he had the opportunity, right? Why not? It's just like first trip to Europe, right?
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Yeah. Yeah. If any firms willing to take you in, go ahead. Yes.
Is it you?
Huh?
They always use example. One of my friends are.
Yeah, different story.
Okay. We are under a little bit of time constraint, so maybe we extend one more question to the physical audience. Maybe anybody wants to ask one final question?
Burning question.
Yeah. Yes, please.
What would you say is the biggest regret during your academic?
During biggest regret in school.
So, to repeat his question, what is the biggest regret you had during your year of pursuing your education?
You know, there's a lot of regret. I mean, but you know, in school, right? Okay, how do I frame this? School, like life, like work. There are things that I love, things that I hate. The first day I stepped into school, I thought I want to do this as a career. Before that, I was thinking of movie directors, photographer, like basketball. You know, my time was that. But when I stepped in year one of, I think year 2 studio, right? All the arrangement of models. And that carries through the passion to this day. The practice, I make sure I still continue, not make a model, someone make for me. But that extension means that remember, same answer. There are things that you must hold dear and you have to continue to them. What other regrets? Yes, regrets not hanging around more at USO, spending way too much time just in studios. Then I do the extremity of not also having some balance, which is important, because if you have a set of firms, those are connections. So a bit of minor regrets. Yeah.
Maybe more personal. I don't know. I don't really have like this kind of state of regrets. I know you lament. Sometimes you learn about things that you could have done better. But whatever happens, it's also a part of the things that shape you as for your current state. So, and there's really no point when to look back and learn from past is one very important thing, but to stay in that state to a certain extent of to indulge yourself in that, I'm not sure. I thought it's more important from there is to look forward, see what you can do better, how you can improve things, be it from the space of, say, design and the processes. And I agree with Alan, it's very important. That's why I said, understand your own compass, your own value system, and then continue to pursue it. You manifest in different ways. And I mean, the cool part about today's sharing and learning is that, there's things, and I think quite connected from school days, like this is the things that I'm obsessed about. This latest bit I'm doing is like, you'll come back and then this will remind you. So yeah, don't live behind your regrets. You're too young for that, actually. Yeah.
For me, it's maybe I share just an anecdote, because there was one of the project that my tutor thought that I was able to achieve more, but I didn't push hard enough. At the end of the crit, she left me a little note in my pigeonhole and say, don't be afraid to go beyond your comfort zone. In the sense that, sometimes design is scary, because good designs comes out of a real struggle and the sense of the unknown. And if you manage to discover something that is totally new to you, I think that's a try. But sometimes you may fall flat on your face as well, But for that project, for whatever reason, I didn't push hard enough, and that was one opportunity missed. And to me, design is a kind of a self-discovery as well. So for that moment, I have kind of missed that. So I wouldn't call it a regret, but it's an important lesson. And while you're in this safe environment in school, nothing can go very wrong, right? You should really try and push it as hard as possible.
Thank you very much for the insightful answers. We would like to thank once again Architect Alan Tay, Architect Xiaxi Huang, and Architect Ho Ziyin for sharing your experience with our audience. Before we turn it back, maybe we would like to invite Prof. Ho to come down and present our guest. Thank you, Alan. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Prof. You are. Thank you so much. Oh, we have a gift for you. We have a gift for Thank you. Thank you. Fantastic presentation.
We will appreciate if you complete a simple survey for us and help to improve our future programs. And the link of this form will be shared to right now in chat for all of you.
And if you'd like to find out more about the works of the three speakers today, their works will move to different locations till June this year. You may scan the QR code. There's going to be a QR code up there that will let you know about the dates and the locations that the projects will be at.
Thank you once again to all our speakers and all of you for spending the day night with us. I hope to see you guys again in the future events.
Thank you so much.